Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Record of attendance. Linda, you good? No absent with regrets because Sandy's here with us. Welcome back, Counselor. Any declaration of conflict of interest, anyone? Just life itself. Approval of agenda. So I have one addition. We'll put it under 10A. The tender for Gleeb Street parking garage demolition. Go ahead, Counselor.
I would like to add accessibility, please.
Accessibility's 10B. Anybody else? Okay, a motion to approve with the changes, with the additions, okay? Moved and seconded, discussion? Question's been called, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Staff reports. Okay, CAO report. Any questions for the CAO? Okay. You're off the hook. Okay, fire department report. The chief is here. Do we have any questions for the fire department? Thanks, chief. Okay. Operational services. So we have, yep, the engineer's report. Oh, that's not his report? Where am I? Chad. Sorry, Chad. I got a report? Okay. Any questions for Chad while he's here?
That's the bus.
How's the bus? Come on up. Oh, that was it?
Good. Bus has been running without a hitch for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah. I don't like to speak of it, actually.
No, I know. I'm so sorry we made you talk about it because the bus should be back down again tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, there's really not much to report. I think if you've noticed on Water Street, the roof on the Killam building is being replaced. It should be done by the end of the week, and with the painting that we did on the exterior last year, the building looking quite nice, so
Good stuff.
quite pleased, yeah.
Hey, Deputy?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Chad, what about when we bring the van into service over the other bus when it's offline? Is there a drop in ridership, or how's it work? Have you noticed anything, or is it basically the same?
No, we notice a decline in ridership when we take the main bus offline and replace it with the van. Yeah, we do see. I don't have numbers for you, but it's probably a 20-30% decline.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Good. Any more questions for operations? Want to put your light on? Go ahead, Cliff, and then Jim, because that's the order the lights are coming up.
Right, so the Broad Street, can we ask questions about the engineer's report here, or do we wait until?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be on, okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
You introduced to me a new staff person the other day.
Pardon me?
You introduced to me a new staff person the other day.
Yeah, we hired a new staff person. His name is Richard Camo. He's our transportation supervisor. So we'll slowly be introducing him to
The bus?
yeah. I haven't yet. I'm going to phase him in. But he'll be taking care of all of the above ground infrastructure, including the transit system, streets, sidewalks, street lighting, traffic lights. There's a big pile of things that he'll be responsible for.
Thank you. Thanks, Chad.
Good staff. We good? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, planning department. So we've got a report here, and if anybody has questions, Morris is a call away, I guess, or an email away. Asset management and infrastructural renewal report. Any questions on that? Did I just miss it? Where is it? Is this when we call our new engineer up and grill him? Want to come up and say hello there, Charles? Yep. Go ahead. He's going to introduce you.
So, Your Worship, Council will be aware that for some time we've been undertaking a search for an engineer for the town of Yarmouth. Mr. Ernst, who's been in that position for almost 30 years, is approaching retirement, and so we were successful in completing the search, and Charles Hartland, who is before you at this moment, is the engineer we've hired, and next month, actually at the council meeting, I'll ask you to appoint him as town engineer effective the last day of July of this year.
Good stuff. How you doing so far? You liking it?
Yeah, I love it here.
That's the right answer.
No, it's very nice here.
Good.
It's beautiful.
Good. Well, we're glad you're here. And we
Thank
also know how big this is. It's a big undertaking, but we're really glad that you're here. And
Thank you.
Dave will just be a sponge. You'll get a lot of stuff out of Dave for sure. Yep. Go ahead, CAO.
So, Your Worship, there is a lot to the engineer's roles and responsibilities, even as we've narrowed them and sort of removed or separated the engineer more from operational responsibilities over the last couple of years. There is still an awful lot to it, and so Charles is I guess almost midway through what is a 6-week transition that we've been able to have with Dave, and as you say, Your Worship, if Charles is a sponge, there's lots he'll pick up in those 6 weeks. But yeah, there's a lot to it, and Dave's been here a very long time and has done a lot to advance the infrastructure and so on of the town. In fact, a lot of the infrastructure we have in terms of treatment facilities and so on have come online during his tenure. So yeah, there's a lot to be transferred in terms of knowledge, and we just hope we have an efficient and effective 6-week transition.
Good stuff. Any questions for Charles? Go ahead, Jim.
I met Charles the other day, so I'm looking forward to working with him. Thank you very much. Also want to say thank you very much to David Ernst. He's been a good friend and a good engineer for, as Jeff has pointed out, for 30 years or so. Thank you very much, David.
Okay, good, thank you. That was relatively painless. One time only.
Wait till August.
Poor guy. Oh, have him scared away before then. Yep, any questions on the engineer's report, folks, anybody? Okay, guess Cliff has a personal one. Okay. Finance Department. Jerry, how we doing?
We're keeping busy. Audits are now, the work done for the audits for the Mariner Center, Waste Park are completed. Auditors are here and gone. They'll be back in about 2 weeks to work with on the water utility and the town's books. So we're just doing work and getting prepared for that. Under the Finance Department, there is an item, the Mariner Center capital projects. So this year, what I worked with the manager to put together a 5-year plan, try to get more of a heads-up, proactive approach on it, and try to give the councils lots of heads-up on what's upcoming and what they would like to do. In the 18-19 year, there were 4 different items identified that would be nice to be done. I've confirmed with my counterpart at the municipality that the municipal council for the municipality of Yarmouth has approved item 2 and item 3 to be done this year. So what I'm looking for, I guess, is approval that we would also approve those 2 items, and then per the current funding agreement, we would ask the municipality of Argyle to contribute as well.
Okay, what happens to the things that aren't getting funded?
Right now, they would be pushed back to the following year at this point, or if this council thought something on there should be done, we could go back to the municipality to see if they would reconsider.
Okay. Yep, sorry, go ahead. Oh, yep, go ahead, Jim. Jim?
Jerry, item 3, the LED light replacements. So do we currently have LED lights? We're asking for the replacement, and we need to replace those lights?
We put in some, not LED, but more efficient lighting over the ice surfaces about 5 or 6 years ago, just before the World Junior A Challenge was held.
Okay.
And it also increased the lighting. So this project will replace all internal lights as well as the lights in the parking lot and all external lights to an LED lighting. The return on that would be about somewhere between 4 and 6 years as far as savings go to the facility. So we invest 104 to 6 years, we'd have it back.
Almost can't afford not to do it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, and correct me please if I'm wrong, the heat recovery.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's an understanding of, that we would have had, I think perhaps that would have been paid for by now.
Yes. Yeah, it would have. And so it's still on there. It's just a little bit bigger number. We were hoping to get the operation systems done as well. I'm not sure what that means for the facility. I thought
Okay.
that was part of something that needed to be done, but it would also enhance or keep the cost down on the heat recovery. So those operation systems, I think what we have today, need to be replaced to do the heat recovery. So that would just be something that would make things work better. My understanding is they would work more efficiently and be able to be controlled, I guess, remotely. But they would work with the new heat recovery system when and if that was done.
Okay. Good, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a question, Jerry. How do we pay for these? This is Mariner Center's capital project projection, 16 projects over 5 years. What is our allocation that we have this year? So there's $11,000 worth of stuff in 18-19 that we would hope would be shared 3 ways.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have our third of the entire amount available to spend?
We
or-
do. We'd set aside some money a couple of years ago when we talked about some of these projects in heat recovery in particular that we still have set aside for. We have about 100 and, top of my head, I'm thinking it's still around 145 to 60,000. I forget the exact number set aside for Mariner Center projects.
Good, okay, thank you. Yeah? Yeah, we need a motion for those two.
Right, so I believe there were 2 motions there, Jerry, that we were looking for?
Well, I have an email from Greg at municipality saying that the roof repairs and the lighting retrofit were approved by their council.
Right, so you need to decide, I mean, you can be influenced by their decision, but you can also make a different decision. And then the second part is that if Argyle is going to be asked to participate in these capital projects, then a motion from this table to request that they participate in the capital projects this year would be appropriate.
So I just need to understand the commitment by the other 2 units so that we can make the appropriate motion. I mean, I'm in favor of making all of it, all 4 projects for 2018, 2019, but that motion is not appropriate today. I just need to, what numbers or what projects?
I think, you know, that motion would be appropriate, Jim, and let me just explain what the implications are and why I say it would be appropriate. I think it would be appropriate because if you're going to be if you're going to be guided by the other parties and what their tolerance is, you're going to end up doing the lowest common denominator. Not what needs to be done, but only those things that everyone agrees at the first cut. So if you feel like all of those projects should be done this year, then I would encourage you to make that motion, and that will cause a discussion to occur, right, between the District of Yarmouth and ourselves about, are we going to try and do all these, or are we limited? Is there a financial limitation? This is a problem we have because we don't give Mariner Center any capital money with parameters to make their own decisions. So, and as an example of something we could do to do this differently is we could fund their depreciation collectively, and then put parameters around that fund, you know, that it's for replacement. So things that show up here that are, you know, fixing main entrance doors or replacing lighting, those things are replacing your current infrastructure and would be appropriate out of that sort of fund. If you gave them that to work with, you wouldn't have to be negotiating between 2 and maybe 3 councils on every item. That's something hopefully we can sort out in the future. But I think if you feel all those projects should be done this year, make that motion. It will end up being the least common denominator, but at least it allows us to have a discussion about why maybe they didn't agree to do some. And they might change their mind, or they might change our mind.
Okay. So Wade, you're on.
Okay, I'm going to say something that's probably not going to be liked by all that many people in our sister municipalities, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is that we have been, as a group, as a council, chided pretty much regularly over the fuss over the Mariner Center expansion and how they're 100% behind it and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. Well, here we go. This is not the expansion, but these are things that need to be done. They are 1/3 owners. Each of them are. Are they not? No, that's right. Okay. They are a municipality with a cost-sharing agreement. At any rate, the time comes to put up or shut up. And for us, if we have the capability of handling our 1/3, then I would like to make the motion that we put our 1/3 in and see what happens from there.
So the motion is for which ones? The first four?
First four. If we have it in our operating budget, Councillor Cloud had asked Jerry whether or not we did. The answer was yes, and they are interested. If we have 1/3 right now to do this, then we should do it, or at least put it on the table and see what happens next.
So is the motion contingent upon? Yeah,
The approval of
the other municipalities, okay?
So I'm prepared to second that motion, but I think looking at the 5-year projection, if we don't do the 5-year projection as the two, Jerry and oh my God, I lost his name, Gil have worked out, then it becomes more than 5 years. Can't wait. So that's all I wanted to say in addition to that. Thanks a lot.
Did somebody second Wade's? Oh, sorry, okay. Go ahead, Cliff.
So these numbers, Jerry, how are these priced?
The first 4, well, actually the first 5, were all, as you see, we have quotes on them, except where you see where it says an estimate. So on the LED lights, that was an estimate. We know the actual hardware comes in at, I'm thinking like 65,000 or so, and then we were estimating that it would cost another 35,000, 40,000 to basically get it all installed.
So when you turn the lights on, do they come on?
They do.
So why are they being replaced?
Just for efficiency, we're going to LED lights, and so the idea is that we'd
What's the
save
payback on the cost?
roughly 4 years.
We just received this week, we haven't had time to discuss it at council, a spreadsheet showing the operations, the budget's issues with respect to Mariner Center over the last 10 years. And this is a whole new dynamic that's added to that sad story. I say sad story because we've gone from an $8,000-odd deficit to $240,000 this year. I'm troubled by that. And I'm troubled if there's something that doesn't need to be done as to why it's being done. Especially when we're talking about a major expansion, or some people are talking about, not we, a major expansion out there. I would think you'd be replacing some of these things in the course of that operation if it ever came about. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay,
So those comments will be phrased in the context of a question, and now I'm done with whatever I have to say before the motion's called.
go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to just provide a little, maybe hope or optimism. The mayor and deputy mayor met with the wardens and deputy wardens earlier today and the CAOs, and one of the things we talked about was Mariner Center. You know, we, the three municipalities who participate in in funding the operating deficit, haven't really given the Mariner Center board a clear mandate and vision. You'll recall back when it first opened, the concern of the owners was don't run a deficit. But that was about as broad as the mandate got, or as clear as the mandate got. Right. Right, and so you have a board of directors, and certainly we're into deficits, which is of concern. You have the 10-year history. So in talking with our partners, or at least the leadership from our partner municipalities, there was an agreement that perhaps one of the things that we can do as owners and partners is provide the board with a clear mandate. And so we're going to undertake, or proposing to undertake, a facilitated meeting with you folks to talk about that and to give that board a clear mandate. Now, that is hopefully coming up in the next couple of months. The LED lighting thing, so if you look at the financial statements, and I've done some analysis of that 10-year history, the revenues today are what they were 10 years ago. Revenues are flat. But if you look at the three items that have driven the deficit, your human resources costs have increased about an average of 3.3% per year. Your power costs have increased, and your repairs and maintenance. You've got to have people in your facility. So, you know, the human resource thing, to a certain extent, there's going to be some creep there. The repairs and maintenance, because of the age of the facility, and you see some of the stuff on here is repairs and maintenance. And then power is the other cost that has increased. So the LED light replacement and the heat recovery heat recovery project are both aimed at operational efficiency, particularly LED, although you'll pay capital money today. After 4 years, you've got that money back in operational savings, and from that point forward, you save $25,000 a year, approximately, on energy costs, which is not insignificant. So that's why you're seeing this come forward before the current light system is at end of life, because as long as that remains in functioning as your light system, you're going to be paying more for power than you otherwise need to.
Okay, good. So, does that help you with the light piece? So I'm not feeling, Yeah, we did too. Yeah. So Wade's motion, seconded by Jim. Any further discussion on that? And we're talking about the first 4 contingent upon other funding.
And Jerry said we're all right with that.
Yeah. Yeah, good, okay. Question's been called, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Good stuff. Yarmouth Recreation. Hello, Frank. You got a busy weekend, I know that, busy summer, but.
Yeah, busy summer. My apologies for not circulating a report, so I thought I'd just give a quick verbal report. The summer programs are starting up with Canada Day festivities on Sunday, and everything's looking good for fireworks on Sunday, so hopefully the weather will work out. We've been busy with getting staff in place for all our summer programs and activities. We had a great turnout for registration, lots of positive numbers with our summer fun day camp and sports camp and youth leadership camp. Lifeguards start at Milo on Saturday, and we've got canoe, kayak instruction and fun days and dragon boat days happening this summer. And dragon boating, with the good spring that we've had, has started about a month earlier. We've been getting good numbers in the dragon boats on Mondays and Wednesdays. So things are in full swing with on the facility side. I was speaking with John Darcy, our facilities coordinator, the other day, and he felt like because of the early spring, that it almost felt like we were in August from where they are as far as mowing and maintenance and staying up on the field. So getting out there earlier has really been a benefit. And we just hosted a large co-ed slow pitch tournament, a regional Atlantic province softball tournament last weekend. So things are progressing well, and we're looking forward to another great summer with Yarmouth Recreation.
Good stuff. Go ahead, Deputy. Oh, somebody's light's on. Jim? Sorry.
Hello, Frank. I enjoy taking my little dog Sam out to the Forest Street ball fields. We get a good run there.
Righto.
And your lawn out there, the fields are just like a green. So they're well mowed, well manicured, and well taken care of.
Righto.
Thank you very much.
Your dog Jim well fertilized, right?
I have my dirt bags.
I always see Jim either on 4th Street or at Gateway, and he's always got his baggies.
Proper thing.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 things, Frank. One is the basketball. Give a little overview of the basketball
Yes.
nets. And the second one is you're going to be here when we talk about the Milo Boat Club, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And a big thanks to the town council for funding the replacement of the backboards and nets at Central School. We are going to do a Facebook splash on that, just announcing to the public. And my apologies for the coordination of that. It took a very long time to coordinate the installation. We initially had a welder fabricate the new parts to meet up with the old support brackets. They did that within a week. And then we were just chasing it for a good 3 months. That we were promised the job will be done Friday. We'd make arrangements with the school, and then something else would come up, and then it was going to be done the next Friday. And we were just chasing it. So the story that I got, because we ended up going to another welding company, and it was the same line in April, was that lobster boats, lobster fishermen, rely on welders. So when they call, the welder goes to make those repairs, because the end of the fishing season, that's why they couldn't commit, or that's why they kept bumping scheduled dates that we had. So once the haul-up day happened, they were installed the very next day. So anyway, from all accounts, talking with Bonnie LeBlanc, the phys ed teacher at the school, and some parents that I've bumped into, they're getting used very well, and hopefully they'll be there for a number of years.
Holly that works at the school there.
Yep.
Kids are quite excited about it.
So they went in good, and I think they're very good quality and should be there for many years.
Good stuff. Go ahead.
A couple of things I want to mention. Thank you, Your Worship. First off, could you give us the name of the welder? He did that for free, did he not? Or a part of it?
No.
No, he
No.
did. Okay. But he did a fantastic job on them.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is this is kind of an unusual situation because of the fact that it's a school property, but we're the ones who put up the money for that. Beyond this, it's going to be taken care of by the school board themselves, is it not?
Yes, until, I guess, the school closes, and then the town will decide what to do with the property. So hopefully, it's something that we'll be able to maintain in the future
All right.
after the school closure.
Excellent. Thank you.
We do a lot of that.
We got one thing done, Cliff.
One thing done.
Okay, go ahead there, Counselor Wood.
The only one that,
Careful.
the only one that says he paid for something but in public and hasn't, and doesn't pay for it is Donald Trump.
I don't know, I believe everything he says. Any more questions for Frank?
Not until we get to the Model Boat Club, Your Worship.
We'll see you at noon on Sunday, I guess. Economic development.
I've provided my staff report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer it.
I have one. The smart cities.
Yes.
So we weren't chosen, but we were at FCM when Bridgewater was chosen. That's great. Like, that's so cool that right here in Nova Scotia, our neighbors. So what's the next step on that? We don't just drop it, right?
No, so I actually have a follow-up meeting with the Smart City jury team, I should say, on July the 11th, and they'll give us their feedback on our application. And then we'll use that feedback and then come back to council with regards to what the recommendations are for next steps. So there is another competition that we can enter. I would suggest that'll be 2019, but during that time we may be approached by other communities to either partner or other technology partners that saw interest in our application.
Good. Any questions for Natalie? Go ahead, Counselor.
Well, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. So Bridgewater won?
Yeah,
One of, how many did they choose? There was 20 or something like that.
there's 20
Really?
finalists and they were selected.
So, do you know how much the fire budget is in Bridgewater? It's $1,300,000. Do you know how much the fire budget is in Yarmouth? $2,400,000. I understand now why they won the Smart City Challenge over us.
They're twice as big as us, too.
It's actually a really neat project, and I think we're all going to be able to learn from their project for us.
What? Ah. Good? Okay, thanks, Nat. Good stuff. We know you're busy. Okay, so business arising, solar project. Go ahead, CAO.
So, Your Worship, there is another intake for solar projects. The province put out another call for proposals. Working with the folks from area, so that's the municipalities that have electric utilities that have done large wind projects. They have provided us with some technical expertise and are proposing or suggesting to us that we could undertake or could submit under this next round as many as 5 projects, 2 that would be entirely ours and 3 that would be in partnership with the District of Yarmouth and the District of Argyll. So at this point, I'd be looking for your agreement to submit an expression of interest. At this point is not a commitment, and there's no guarantee that they would accept our application, but put in an expression of interest, do the work to submit proposals for those 5 installations.
Okay. there, Jim.
I'll second that motion. Jeff, is there an order of priority by way of presentation? Just curious.
No, they're not in order of priority. They're grouped by the number of partnerships. So in the first group, it is just the town of Yarmouth, the first two projects. The third project is just with the District of Yarmouth. They're the other owner at Mariner Centre. And the last two projects are at infrastructure that we own with Argyle and the district. So the Hard Scratch Road building is the transfer station, and the airport obviously is a building that we, or set of buildings that we own collectively. Mariner Centre is just a two-way partnership, and the other two would be completely Town of Yarmouth projects. That doesn't mean we wouldn't share necessarily, right? If there's an appetite among the group to share these projects, both in capital as well as operating benefit, that's open for possibility as well. So we would submit these 5 projects, and they're each there's a proposal for each for a rate that we would receive back from Nova Scotia Power. We propose the rate, and that rate would be based on partly installation costs. So the more complicated the installation, the higher the cost needs to be. One of the projects you'll see is at a lower scale than the other 4, so it may not be as economically appealing, right? It's up to Nova Scotia Power ultimately which ones they select to go forward. So these are just 5 that we have a possibility. The area folks think we have a reasonable possibility of success with, so they've suggested that we indicate that if we're supportive.
Is there a capital cost that you're aware of at this point, or just as a follow-up? I'm just curious. I think I hope that we are accepted, Jeff and Jerry.
Yeah, I don't have the final numbers or the projected numbers for what they would be. The prior projects were costing, depending on the size and scope, anywhere between $75,000 to $150,000 to install, but the payback was typically 7 to 10 years.
Good.
And does it help? Do we make if we want to do the one with our other 2 municipal partners, are they going to submit the same projects too, or we do it, or are they going to do their own projects, or do we know that? Have you had that conversation with Victoria or with Alain?
So the ones that are joint, so this is being coordinated by the area group. So they know which ones are joint, obviously, and so they would submit those under our names together. The District of Yarmouth may have projects that are
Over and
individual
above,
on their own, as may Argyle. I don't know that. I don't know if Jerry knows that. This is just the information that the area gave us back in terms of a draft letter and 5 projects that we would be involved with potentially.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good, so moved and seconded. Any more discussion, folks? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Solar. RFD, fire dispatch outsourcing. CAO. Whoops, sorry. Oh, Sandy?
On this, I just have a question. The request for decision on the bullet point number 3, where it says using the town's Get Involved Yarmouth engagement website will inform. So number 3, it says the public on the fire dispatch service standards and how it will be maintained with the outsource model kind of implies to me, or I could be wrong, but it implies to me that this is going to happen, that is a done deal. And so I was wondering, shouldn't it read how it could be maintained? Because regarding the fire dispatch communication process, I'd like the distinction made that this is a decision on communication plan and not the final decision on outsourcing as the details of the document imply.
Yeah, that's fair. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the intent of that bullet, Your Worship, is to indicate to the public, and we know there is concern about service standards and how a different service provider could maintain the appropriate standards. And so that bullet is intended to say that one of the key pieces of information that we will attempt to communicate through that platform is exactly how we know that the service standard would be maintained. What is the requirement? And so it doesn't mean that the decision has been made.
Okay.
It just means that if the decision is made, what safeguards, what standards do we have that a service provider that we might select would have to agree to meet?
Okay.
So we can change that word. It's just, how it may be maintained with the outsourced.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What are you thinking?
I think the strong language, the will versus the may, we didn't want to signal to anybody that we may maintain a standard if we were to outsource, that a standard will be, right? I think that was the intent of the stronger language, that we didn't want to appear wishy-washy on respecting a standard.
Yeah. Okay. Wade, I just lost you in the light again. Sorry.
Okay, that's all good.
Gotcha.
The only thing I want to do is make clear to everybody who may be listening that all we're approving right now is a plan to communicate the standards and the side. This is all about communication. It's not about any kind of a decision that's being made at this point, other than communicating a side of a story.
So, yeah, and to your point, Counselor, I received a couple emails and just asking, what was this about? And it's simply to inform. Go ahead, Counselor Wood.
I made a lighthearted, or attempted lighthearted comment earlier. It was deliberate, but it wasn't very lighthearted, I guess. Last week, I obtained copies of the Town of Bridgewater's financial statements and their fire budget. And I consider, most of us, I think, would consider that the Town of Bridgewater is at least as prosperous or unprosperous as Yarmouth, probably more prosperous. It has a few more people than Yarmouth, maybe 8,000, and certainly located in a community with a lot. Anyway, in their fire budget, the total budget for their fire services in their town is about $1.33 million, and that compares to the total budget in our town of something in the order of $2.4 million. In their budget, fire budget, they have a line item for dispatch services. This current year, it's $9,100, and in the next budget year, it's $9,500, and that compares to our cost of $240,000. Just providing the information, Your Worship, so that to assist people in all the talking that they do about this issue.
Thank you. Okay, now, we were at the RFD. So, was there a motion? Okay, your light's still on, Counselor. So we're understanding that this is just to go on or get involved Yarmouth, put the information on there like we have with the other issues that we're dealing with, the Arts Center, I think Waterfront was on there. I think coming up shortly we have some solid waste, so to get more people to go to that site to get the facts, okay, because the facts aren't out there. What's that? You making that motion?
Make that motion.
Okay, second by Jim. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
Your Worship, the next request for decision is once again to seek your blessing for the use of the Get Involved Yarmouth platform, and it's regarding the legalization of non-medical cannabis. We've heard a lot, and we may have read a lot about the potential impacts of that federal change in law, and we do have provincial law related to that, but we don't have, at this point, municipal bylaws. I know there's work across the province and indeed across Canada on the municipal side of the issue. We thought as staff that it might be an opportune time to use the Get Involved platform to put out some information, some facts about what's coming up, I guess, in October now, and to seek feedback from our community in terms of issues or whatnot that they may want us to address at the local level. To be honest, at this point in the process, we don't know what to advise you, and we think that understanding the community's concerns around it might help us in focusing our efforts as staff in terms of advising you of actions you may take as a council. So that is for your consideration.
Good.
So this, sorry, if I could add one
Yes,
thing.
certainly.
This, as opposed to the previous request for decision, is much more intended to grab thoughts, concerns, feedback from the public on it. I think we've heard lots of thoughts and concerns around the other issue. What hasn't happened as effectively on that issue is getting the information out that is concerning council. So this is, we'll be putting other people's facts out and seeking concerns from the public that fall within our jurisdiction.
Go ahead. Okay.
I'll second that
Second it.
motion.
Good.
I just had a question. That Get Involved site, when we move these two items, and do we do it, or does the Get Involved group do that? Does Natalie organize that, or does some?
So we have to do the work internally. They have great support at Get Involved in terms of helping us. I think you've met Anthea, one of their specialists. But the work is done. They can advise us, but the work is done locally. Now, the part that they do for us that is beneficial, frankly, is they do monitor the activity on the page, and if there's anything that crosses the lines of sort of respectable discourse or anything that gets particularly off topic, then they moderate and they intervene and they contact the participant who is maybe crossed a line, and they will remove posts that are disrespectful or off topic. We don't have to do that, and they do that for cities around the world 24/7.
Think of a whole lot of businesses that could use that skill.
Yes, Your Worship.
Sorry, but. Okay, did that answer your question?
I think I knew the answer, but I just want to check to say that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it has. Put your lights on.
Well, I'm referring to the memo from the CAO. Strategic relevance, it says. Municipalities are required to have in place the associated land use planning requirements, policies, bylaws, regulations, and enforcement processes to meet the requirements of Bill C-45 and Bill C-46 of non-medical cannabis legislation in the summer of 2018. Is that going to happen?
It's October now, isn't it?
Well, it's going to happen by October. Can we get this done in October at the pace we're going? I don't think so.
Well, okay, go ahead. 'Cause I would say something.
So technically, required may be strong. We don't have to actually do anything
Right.
under the law. But what we're hoping to do through this process is understand where the concerns are in the community. We can ask some questions, maybe propose some possible policy choices, and have people comment on how they feel about it in our community. And then come back to you with some information that may guide decisions. We know now that we're looking at October before we're legal. You're right, it's not a lot of time, but the lay of the land hasn't been abundantly clear going back all that far. So we're proposing to get on the process now, and if we don't have our restrictions in place at the time that it becomes legal to purchase cannabis, that doesn't mean that we can't implement things afterwards.
So the other piece to that, I don't know if this helps you at all, Cliff. I might not be answering your question. But the urban mayors, for example, we've had a general conversation about that. So we don't need every town in the province trying to write their own legislation. What if we share that, you know, the best practices kind of thing, and then everybody's not developing their own, so less work. So I can see from this, because people thought I was crazy when I said it's gonna cost us money. It's going to cost us money, and it starts now with the time and effort it takes just to start writing the legislation that takes away from something else. Go ahead.
Well, there's a big concern, but the FCM has put out some useful information,
Yeah.
and there's a hierarchy of responsibilities on this. The least affected by all this, the federal government is going to collect all the money, pass the law, and made us do the heavy legwork and enforce it. But there are things that we are, if I read the FCM guideline correctly, there are definitely things that affect our citizens that we can do under local bylaws in relation to this stuff. And we need to get off our butts and get it going, or we'll be behind the 8 ball, and then when we do it, we'll be shutting people down from doing things they think they can do. And we'd be better off having the bylaws in place, frankly, before people are legally authorized to do the things that the Act lets them do. And just for that, people are allowed to grow them in their backyard, and you can't grow a tobacco plant in your backyard in this country without a license. Never mind. It's the will of the majority.
Good? Okay, so it's moved and seconded to use the, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Business, use of South School. I don't have it. I don't know how it got on there. Sorry, go ahead.
Your worship, that item was referred from the last council meeting, referred to committee of the whole, so
Yeah, go ahead. I
Yeah,
remember that.
thank you, your worship. I know that we, about a year ago, maybe a little longer than that, acquired South Centennial School. There was a use for it when they had the flood at the Boys and Girls Club, and we let them use it for a year and a bit. But I think there was a point just before that that we thought that we were going to put it out for a community use idea. I don't know if we've ever done anything with that. I know that you've had some discussions, your worship, with another group of people. I'm just wondering where we at, because, you know, in a couple of years, we have that building there, and I know the CAO's had some discussions with people from Nova Scotia Housing. In a couple of years, we will be acquiring another property, and Mr. Grant already alluded to that, and some of the recreational opportunities that we might lose at that property. So I'm just wondering where we are with the South Centennial School property.
Okay, so we had, you're right, we had a group come in and ask about it, a community group, but we also, Jeff, I want to say a year ago, we had the other group come in, Compass, it's a provincially, you know, housing kind of thing. Anyway, they came in as well and chatted, so we just received some correspondence, and Jeff's going to meet with some folks.
So we'll be
After we
engaged.
get back, so.
Okay, so
middle-
we'll be,
middle, end of July.
okay.
Yeah. So then we'll have more after that. Go ahead, Wade, first.
Okay, just while we're on the subject of abandoned schools, because that seems to be what they do. And yes, you alluded to it, and Frank alluded to it as well. We're soon going to have another school on our hands, one that's has some beautiful green space that's used often, that we just put money into for the basketball courts. It has a playground, it has other things. But perhaps we should be thinking ahead to the point of what are we going to do with that? If it were me, I'd mow the thing over and create a green space, but that's just for me. But I really think that we should be prepared in advance, be a little more proactive as opposed to reactive, because once that thing sits there, it's an expense on our books, keeping it maintained, keeping the heat in it, so it doesn't, you know, it doesn't flood, all of that. So perhaps we could be ready for that a little bit better than we were in other situations.
Some nice when they get back on the tax roll, though. Are you gonna go
Yep,
ahead, Jim?
so just a thought, because I did speak with council about the idea of doing a consultation in the community in the neighborhood of South Centennial School. We've had some back and forth in our planning department between our planner returning from leave, contract planner. Our planner is on another leave right now, and so we're back to the contract planner. That's what's kind of, that and workload have kind of pushed that process back a bit. So anyway, we will, I'll update you on the other situation around South Centennial School, and perhaps I'll put my head together with the contract planner and see if he has the bandwidth, the capability of starting the consultation process with the neighborhood.
Good, thank you.
Good. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Don. Go
The other
ahead.
groups that have been approached for this use of the facility, have they been contacted and said that it's still in process, or how far down the road you're going to get back to them, or that kind of stuff?
So
would be
there's one person
Okay.
that was, and I'll just say it's Shift. Shift House was kind of pulling that together with the other proponents.
Okay.
So he would keep in contact with them, and, because they came as a group, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was, I was referring to another group.
Not
sure.
I'm not talking about the Compass Group. I'm talking about, well, I think what you're talking about, the pregnancy care clinic, like there was a bunch of them.
I'm talking about youth development for young people, African Nova Scotians.
Oh.
They use it for educating young people
They
in the
register.
area and too far to walk to the high school that live in the community.
Yeah.
And the younger ones just can't get rides or can't
Brenda's
get.
group.
Therefore, their numbers have gone from, we'll say, 60 kids to 10, 5, mainly because the older group have so many other hobbies now. But the younger group is still in the community,
Yeah,
and yet there's nowhere for them to go.
yeah. Okay. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So I had asked for somebody to follow up with them, so I'll get a report. I'll get back to you with that. Yep.
Milo Boat Club.
Come on up, Frank, and Wade's gonna, and we'll start with Councillor Cleveland, and I'll chip in.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead. Both on.
This is a topic that came up. It's come up a couple of times. It came up when we were doing presentations for funding originally, and it came up at the recreation meeting the last time we were there as well. And so it's worth bringing up again. Milo Boat Club is in need of some capital investments, and I think Frank can probably allude to a few of them. The one that comes to mind most particularly is the need for redone bathrooms. But as it turns out, we had a pretty tight schedule when it came to funding this past year, and so the capital investments that were requested by the Recreation Department ended up kind of being passed by. Actually, at one point, you had mentioned perhaps there should be some kind of a different formula for capital when it came to recreational facilities. Everybody knows that the Milo Boat Club is a busy spot this time of year and otherwise, actually, even on the off-season. It's a busy location, and it certainly needs our TLC, and perhaps it can be something that can be done and brought before the three councils, or at the very least the two councils, because the municipality certainly has a hand in this as well.
And I'd like to commend the previous councils that I know probably 20 years ago or a little longer that there was a very good chance, Councilor Hood, we were going to lose that building. And I'd like to commend those guys years ago that had the foresight to save it. And I think we're at the next step now. I was mistaken until the last, and it's my fault being here for 10 years. I thought that building was owned by both municipal councils, and I guess it's owned by the town of Yarmouth wholly. So I know that I didn't know that until in the last year. So,
I just knew it now.
yeah. So it's almost like I'm going to use the same analogy as the Kilns building. So we own the Kilns building. We're doing the repairs on the Kilns building. I know there's an opportunity through Misty said, and Jillian and Frank said there's some accessibility funding. Frank, there's a small amount of money to do some assessment of the building. There's also, you said to yourself and John and Misty that you guys can do some preliminary work on, see what has to be done. And I'd like to see that in the capital budget this year, even if we don't go to the municipality and ask for the money. If you drive by that building any day of the week, winter or summer, they're using it for all kinds of activities. You saw the increase in the dragon boat activity, but it is a nice facility. Got a good parking lot on the other side where the parks people now work at the old RCMP station. So I think it's something that we should put on our plate. We're always going to go hat in hand to other municipalities. I know some of their residents use it, but it's a building that's owned by the town of Yarmouth. I know at the Hebron Recreation Center that the municipality takes care of that. So maybe instead of batting this one back and forth, maybe put it in our capital budget for next year and start the process. Because I think Frank can cost out what has to be done. There's an accessibility portion in that. The bathrooms have to be done because the thing hasn't been really retrofitted in the last 20 years. They've done some Band-Aids and some other things, but it's a greatly used building in a great part of town. And hopefully with the municipality talking about their boardwalk project, that'll be a starting point or an ending point too. So that all has to do with accessibility and active transportation.
Good. So are you making a motion to refer to budget?
Yes, and Frank, if you can help me out with the process for assessing the building and what you would like to see with yourself and John, what needs to be done. I'd make a motion that we refer that to the budget for next year. And it gives us lots of opportunity, Your Worship, to go after some funding with active transportation. You know, that's a starting and stopping point. The bikes or the all-terrain vehicles use the parking lots up above. That could be a starting point for those guys, even though we haven't got them down the streets yet. But it's a starting point, and we have it's accessibility. So, Frank, maybe if you can just help me with that part.
Sure. There is some funding through the accessibility program with the province, where by 2030, the province of Nova Scotia wants every public facility fully accessible. Within Yarmouth and Shelburne County, within the recreation departments, we are going to, in the process of doing some assessments of some of the recreation facilities in Yarmouth and Shelburne County as part of a South Shore project that will give us an idea of what the current, give us kind of a template of what we should be looking at when we're looking at older facilities like Milo, and what we should be addressing in terms of accessibility. So there are funds available for studies, and there's funds available for projects. Also available to us are recreation facility development funding, which we've been told that if we were successful in getting a recreation facility development grant for a project, that we can stack the accessibility funding with that program. So, for example, if we costed out the repairs at Lake Milo and it was going to be $150,000, we may be able to get $50,000 through the facility development program with the province, and maybe another $25,000 through the accessibility program. So it could stretch our dollars a bit further. I guess where we get talking at a recreation committee meeting about capital projects was just something, just an aside conversation that Jerry Varon and I had after a budget meeting, where Jerry just mentioned perhaps recreation should be around the table when council deliberates capital projects. And as of now, we have a small capital budget that's usually $50,000 within our joint budget, which 25 comes from the town and 25 comes from the municipality. But we have trimmed that back because we've been scaled back a little bit, and at this point for the last two budgets, we felt that the operations end were more important than some of the capital projects. So we haven't had any discussions with the town or with the municipality about that. It's on the radar, And if that's something that we can pursue in the future, it may be beneficial to remove the capital line from the joint recreation budget and look at, have recreation around the table at both councils when they're deliberating recreational types of projects. That way it can be more of a benefit to know that the capital money that the town council is putting into recreation is going to be towards something that the town owns. Did I answer your question?
I turned my light off, but I'll let Councillor Hood ask, and I'll have another question for Frank after.
Lights on now. Jeff first. Jeff was first. CAO.
So I think what I'm hearing from Councillor or Deputy Mayor Mooney and the Director is that the current model for funding capital upgrades isn't working. And we have a number of intermunicipal partnerships that have part of capital components, and I think we should just acknowledge and maybe make our partners aware that we don't think it's working under the current model. We talked about Mariner Center and it being an aging building and the need to reinvest when the reinvestment's needed, and here's a case with an even older building where we're not making the investment that is needed and is public facing. So I think let's make them aware that we don't think it's working. Let's open a conversation about what the model could look like to be a little more effective. The agreement that's been in place for over 20 years has the sharing of those costs, 50-50 capital costs. So, maybe that model doesn't work, but I would suggest that let's clarify the agreement or what we want the agreement to be, rather than stepping out every time that we have a need that the other party doesn't feel and funding it entirely ourselves. Let's get the agreement right so that everything is either shared or everything isn't shared.
Councillor Hood, and then I'll...
Go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, the building was built around 1937 by a group of volunteer citizens who incorporated a company, Milo Aquatic Club Limited, and they held shares in the club. And mostly it was sweat labor. I think it cost them about $2,000 to build the whole building, that was for the lumber. That club was very, very active, and it was a club. It was anything the town had to do, if you know what I mean. And it carried itself well through the 50s, but in the 60s things got thin, and it eventually came on hard times, and there just wasn't a membership to sustain it. My father carried it on, kept the company alive, and for quite a number of years he was able to keep the lights on and look after it by renting it to the Kinsmen's Club, and it served their purposes well for quite a long time. Eventually he was able to convince the town to deed it over to the town, and the town took responsibility. And Councillor, it was 1994 that we did a major reno of the building. And I remember the day so well because when we had a function up there to open it, my dad was on hand and very proud. And he passed away later that fall, but it was a big day in his life to see and so that's 25 years ago. It's time to do this again. The building is the use that it's receiving today justifies what we did in 1994, and it justifies doing what's proposed to be done now, in my view. Thank you.
Plus, the other thing, taking into consideration what the CAO said, Your Worship, is I'd like to have the process started. The costing, because it's no good for us in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 months saying, we want to work with our other municipal partner and say, we want to do something with the Milo Boat Club, but we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know what it entails to do the upgrade. So maybe if we start that part first and then have that other conversation second, would that be?
I think that we need to start having the conversations with them first to say this is.
I think this is, I think this is important enough for the citizens of Yarmouth that I think we had that conversation around the table, and I've been sitting on recreation now for 10 or 11 years, and it got pounded back and forth like a tennis ball. And maybe this is my...
Heads up.
Oh, the heads up, yes,
Heads
yes,
up.
yes, okay, yeah.
We don't want to come and say,
No, we want them to be part of the process, and we will, and the people from the municipality of the District of Yarmouth that sit around the recreation table recognize that, and I think couple of the councillors said that's an important project to those guys too. So if we can start the process with the costing, I think that'll be the biggest thing, then we can go from there.
let's just make sure we do it together, right? Which maybe is through you, where we both sit, I guess. That makes sense? Right?
CAO's talking, Your Worship, about a much bigger scope and needed discussion about capital products.
Absolutely.
I think in the short term, what Deputy Mayor's saying is this model project, we ought to have the conversation about it with our partners and see if we can't get it done. And
Yeah.
maybe that could be the seed that allows us to proceed with our bigger conversation that the CEO so rightfully recommends we engage in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm good.
Stuff.
And
Okay.
timing-wise, it's perfect because those grants are usually around the new year. So if we're talking now and getting things in motion for next year, then we could be costing things out and applying for grants and getting that moving.
Okay.
What was the motion?
Councillor, why wouldn't the Recreation Committee authorize your director to write up the applications, apply for it? You get it, at least we got something to chew over.
Yes.
Just, all I'm
It may
saying
be we
is,
can't find the money to do it, but if as long as we understand that there's a certain amount of money coming from the project, it
We can-
would be a big incentive for us to find the money.
That's right. That's different from my original motion.
yeah, and all I want to make sure of is that we are not doing something by ourselves without advising our partners or potential
Frank, how does it
partners,
work,
even though we own it.
for maintenance of the building? That goes through Yarmouth Recreation, right?
Yep, goes through the joint budget.
It goes
so
through the
it's
joint
50-50.
budget, right?
You- Am I being clear? I just don't want us to.
Put the cart,
I don't want you to apply for something
Right.
unless the municipality is aware that we are doing that.
right, and there's
And-
nothing,
And the other point to that, Your Worship, is if we do it on ourselves, those guys are paying a portion anyways. They are paying maintenance and upkeep,
They are.
right?
And
So
it's not fair for them not to know. That's all I'm saying.
that's okay.
Right?
yeah, there's nothing to apply to yet, once
Yeah.
those programs are announced, but we can start doing some legwork, we can start getting our partners advised and start
Yes.
having some discussion.
I'll put it this way. Going forward, we need to make every effort that when there is even potential for the other municipalities, our partners and our neighbors to be involved in something, that we let them know what's going on first.
Sure,
As opposed to going ahead and doing it and then saying, can you help us out here? But that's not the case here, because it goes through recreation anyway to get it fixed, so. We're good. Okay, so your motion, what do you want to do with this? Did you want?
Go ahead, Jim.
Make an additional comment. I can make it before or after the motion.
I was going to probably withdraw the motion and maybe try a new one, that's all.
Go ahead.
I'll withdraw my previous motion with who seconded that? Councillor Cleveland, and I'll make a motion that we direct
You okay with that, Wayne? Yeah?
direct staff to do the preliminary discussions with our municipal partners on the upgrades to the Milo Boat Club.
So does
That's
that
cost-
happen through?
That's going to
recreation
happen, that's,
department, right? So
Frank-
everybody's at the table,
Yeah.
Yes.
happy.
So, and then Frank can come back with the costings, and then if we have to, if they pay a portion next year, then that's all right, and if not, we can make that decision when that number comes back to us.
Okay, good. I'm happy. All right.
Second,
so
Councillor Cleveland?
Moved, seconded, discussion. That would be you, Jim.
Is our sister municipality considering building, reconstructing a boardwalk that was there when I was much younger? Maybe I wasn't even around, I'm teasing a little bit. Between the Mila Boat Club and the Villa St. Joseph. And if it's a nice dream project, and maybe at a certain, when it comes time to plan and consider that maybe the Mila Boat Club could be a large part of that project, whether it's a renovation, a huge renovation, or an upgrade, or even a new boat club.
The only information that I have on the potential boardwalk project along Lake Milo was a statement from Councillor Trevor Cunningham that he mentioned that as a project, and I was tasked with gathering some more information about similar projects in Nova Scotia and to check on some companies that do that type of work. So I don't think I haven't been involved with any other discussions about as far as if they're going out to tender for an engineering company or any planning meetings or anything like that. So I think it's still very preliminary.
Yep, good, thank you.
Question, Your Worship.
Okay, questions called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
And we'll CC this to the municipality.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you. And Councillor Hood, I have a copy of one of those shares. Someone dropped off an actual Lake Milo share to our office, so I have it somewhere in a file.
How cool is that? You should frame that and put her up on the wall.
Remember what year it was?
In a file, I know, right, we frame everything.
59 or 58?
Killam's Wharf.
They're worth a lot of money.
Killam's Wharf interim repairs tender evaluation.
Our consultant invited tenders from two local contractors here in Yarmouth, Tri-County Construction and GW Doucette Construction, to submit quotations to carry out interim repairs at Killam's Wharf. And we received only one quotation back from GW Doucette Construction. Tri-County did not submit a quotation. Their quotation was $78,500 plus HST. After some discussions with them, they removed the electrical component out of the quotation and reduced their price to $68,500 plus HST. Although there's just one quotation was submitted for this work, due to the small nature of the project, it's felt that retendering to invite contractors from outside the region is not going to yield any quotations that are going to be less than what we already received. They're not going to mobilize to come down here for a small job like that. So based on the information and the methodology that the consultant reviewed with them, they see no reason why we should not proceed with the award of the contract to GW Doucette Construction to carry out the work.
Councillor Berry?
My question would be related to the electrical. What happens now to the electrical? Is that going to be added onto this expense? Is there going to be electrical that needs to be done?
There's electrical that needs to be done, but we'll look after doing that ourselves. So that's taking it out of their hands, and the uncertainty with regard to how much they'll normally allow a good deal of money to cover that cost. So we're going to look after that and absorb that cost. So we'll know whatever it is, so.
Good. Councillor Hood?
I'll simply make a motion that we authorize the project to go ahead and the contract to be awarded as recommended.
Second.
Seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, non-medical. Kellam's Wharf interim repairs services during construction. Go ahead, Dave.
That's for geotechnical and work during construction to monitor the contractor's work as well as final inspection, and it really only amounts to about $8,000. So, I mean, I don't know if we need to get approval for that. I mean, that's within our...
Yep,
So,
good.
so moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Go ahead, Cliff.
It's a lot better than $500,000 or $1 million that we were talking about. It certainly is. So we
Well,
should do that. I mean,
this is-
but it's this monitoring thing. They're checking it, they're going,
Yeah.
and there's some small, they need to do a bit of work, and it's good enough for now.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's good enough for now. This is not,
It's not a final solution.
it's not a
just,
final solution by any stretch, which I think was, yeah, okay, we'll leave that. Go ahead, Wade.
Well, I guess my question is, and I know the difference between the two, but how long will this interim solution serve us until we have to get to a much more heavy spot when it comes to putting some investment in there?
I can't really predict that, but I mean, to leave it...
surveys reveal that there's significant movement from the data.
Yeah, we're going to continue to have a survey monitor control points on the wharf to see whether or not it's moving.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Question, Your Worship.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, folks. Englobe proposed borehole monitor well locations. CAO?
Your Worship, Council may remember back last year we had discovered through some routine work that the town was undertaking petrochemical contamination at a location near Central Street in Hawthorne. So we engaged Englobe Environmental Consulting to assist us in dealing with Department of Environment on that situation. It's been determined that we have to carry out Phase 2 environmental site assessment and a borehole program, and so Englobe has given us a proposal to carry out that work. We did attempt to I'll say avoid the work or argue that maybe it wasn't our responsibility unsuccessfully. So here we are, cost of $14,200 plus HST is what is proposed, and so we would ask for your acceptance of that proposal so we can move forward with that work.
Moved by Councillor Barry.
Second.
Second by Deputy. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Correspondence for action. Tim Doucette presentation, request relight pollution. So basically, Tim does the deep sky.
Make a motion, Your Worship, we accept the request presentation and put them off to the next available time.
Yep. Yep, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Yarmouth Development Corporation, I didn't think they were still in existence.
Still me?
Did I miss something? Replaquing program. I must be thinking of another organization. Go ahead.
So, Your Worship, the YDC has apparently taken the decision to wind up, and they haven't been terribly active the last few years. They've given us some indication of how they have supported the town in the past, and in fact how they support some of the more recent initiatives of the town, particularly around the facade improvement program. And so they find themselves with a cash balance in their account that they wish to turn over to the town. And they feel, as they say, we feel that plaquing the buildings located in the original business improvement district will create a lasting remembrance of the role played in the revitalization of downtown Yarmouth in the 1980 to 2010 period. That was the period when they were most active. So they're suggesting they will turn over the balance of funds to the town, and they are recommending that the funds be used for that plaquing program to complement the facade program. So that is, I guess, information for you that they wish to do this, and if you wish to proceed with that, you could make that motion. If you wish to consider it, you could receive it and have it brought up on a future agenda. That's your decision.
I have a suggestion, and I'll make it in the form of a motion as well, that we approve this in principle, but subject to referring it to the Heritage Advisory Committee, and have a report from the Heritage Advisory Committee as to what they might or might not be able to do in respect to this, and what they think we should do or not do. That's my motion.
Say that again? It's just the second half of it.
Second habit, I'm asking them to say two things. One, is there anything that, what should we do if we should do it? And, no, how do I get that? What I wanted to do was to have them look at it, they're the Heritage Advisory Committee, and ask them for advice and guidance. And in particular, would they make a recommendation of what they think we should do?
Okay, gotcha.
I'll second that.
Yep, moved and seconded. Go ahead there, Counselor.
They were hoping that they could dispense the money as indicated in their last paragraph there. But I think working with more specifically, they wanted the money to be dispensed in the original central business district boundaries. And so I can support Cliff's motion, except the Heritage operates in generally the whole town. So like we've been talking about Huntington Street at one point, and so I would support Cliff's motion, but I like to hopefully that it would be the money would remain in the central business, the original boundaries.
Yeah. The intent of the motion is to follow this
Yeah.
request and make sure it's okay, and how to do it.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
in keeping with the facade, it looks like it's in keeping in general with the facade
Yeah.
program, which means this general.
I just wanted to be more clear in my own mind, that's all. So,
You need your light on.
Remember the efforts of the downtown business community.
mhm.
Taxes they raised, they
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm supportive. I was just wanting to be clear in my own mind.
Yeah, and I support what the Councillor Hood said and what Councillor McLeod said. We all sit, three of us sit on the Heritage Advisory Committee, and I think we can follow the wishes of the YDC and recognizing the work that they've contributed, like the facade program, something that started over 30-something years ago and it continues today. And I think we can follow the guidelines quite well.
Okay,
And it's all about uniformity too, right?
so it was moved, was it seconded?
I second
Somebody did, okay, Counselor Hood?
Just to finish, to Philip's point, he and I are on the Heritage Advisory Committee. I think we're on the same page about this, and Jim. But we do have civilian members there, and I don't think we should do this without consulting with them and giving them our thoughts and have the committee.
And even invite Mr. Atwood in. I think Chris is the one that signed the letter. Invite Chris
Yep.
in for the day.
Yeah.
That'd be
You
good.
think you're Counselor Hood now? You can't talk without your light. Okay, good point. I'm just teasing you.
I just have one kind of teasing comment I mentioned earlier before we came out here. When I graduated from university in 1920, came back to work in 1970, and I was co-chair of the Downtown Business Association with Charlie McDonald, who used to be a manager of the Met. But beyond that, I can remember sitting in a meeting somewhere in downtown Yarmouth, Maggie Wagner's restaurant, and with Charlie. And then one of the people I'll always remember was your father in the audience looking at me. Am I going to measure up to his standard? I don't know. Anyway, 1970, Cliff.
Oh my gosh. Charles, don't you worry. Our pipes aren't as old as Jim. You're good. Okay, so we got a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. We got previously distributed, and you can see in there too, like the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, I'm on their board, and we're sending out to councils the updates. So we've got everything from the partnership to cannabis legalization, the Accessibility Act, which I think we'll talk about on one of the additions there, so take a peek at that. Additions, the first one is the tender Gleeb Street parking garage demolition. So we have, want that one, have you got it? Go ahead, CAO.
Yes, so it's the Gleeb Street parking garage demolition. The parking garage behind us has fallen into a level of disrepair where it was deemed last year, the year before, that demolition was the way forward. So an RFP was requested from 2 consultants for the preparation of design, drawing specifications, and tender documents for the demolition of the Gleeb Street storage garage and the redevelopment of the site into a municipal parking lot. So we won't be losing parking through this process. We'll just have it perhaps a 2-tiered parking lot. 2 proposals were received from qualified consultants, and the results are noted by the town engineer. After reviewing the proposals, it's recommended that the engineering design services be awarded to CBCL Limited in the amount of $24,466 plus HST. That's for your information, consideration, and hopefully approval.
Make that a motion, Your Worship.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Go ahead. You were going to say something there, Deputy?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. To maybe Dave or Charles can chip in. What's the story on the loss of the sea? Like, how's that going to be? That's going to be all, what do we lose behind there? Is that wall going to be completely taken down? Is there going to be construction around that wall? The back wall. I know we got some plants down there and some pictures, not pictures, but etchings on the back wall. What's this?
Build a new wall and the municipality's going to pay for it.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
See, I set him up. What's the story on that, Dave?
That wall will be coming down and be greatly reduced in height with the lower tiered parking lot. So hopefully we'll have a much better view of, rather than that big high wall that's there now.
Okay, good, thank you. You can't top that one.
We don't want to. Yeah, just jot it down. Go ahead there.
So I just wanted to ask actually about this because I remember seeing on the budget how much higher, there was a much higher number placed on this. Okay. Once this is tore down, what happens? He's answered the question about the wall, but does that just become a parking area? Is it that simple? Is there an extra expense in that? Is this just the tear down?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Accessibility. Councillor Dennis.
Our accessibility, since now I have the use of,
Okay.
wheelchair and stuff, going out as a council, sometimes we don't see the big picture sometimes because we're not involved, right? That's not anybody's fault. It's just if you haven't been there, you don't understand what some people go through. So we have Happy Feet who want a handicap parking spot in front of their building because they serve a lot of people with mobility issues. So across the street, we have one that's not utilized to its full potential in front of the consulate building, and the problem with that one is, if you get out of your car, and like Ken has to get me in and out, and then you have to go up to the crosswalk, get a crosswalk, or you just go across the street, which puts you in danger, really. So I believe that we should be looking into where these are set up that look after the most people, and where he services the tri-counties with mobility issues. I feel that possibly that maybe we could do away with the one that's across the street and put it in front of his building. And it's not about him and his business, it's about what we're supplying to the needs of the community. And where so I wanted to make a motion to have staff look into relocating a handicap space in front of the consulate building to the front of Happy Feet Orthotic business, where it will better serve the needs of our citizens with mobility issues. And this will provide the safest and shortest route possible for his patients. And then I thought, maybe, I'm not trying to get more for downtown, but just to see where the best places that serve the most people.
So as I understand that, we are in the process right now of doing that accessibility review.
Okay.
Which is why we didn't, and I read your email, and we don't say yes to everybody, but we don't because we go by what the engineer says, the traffic authority and all those pieces. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're in the process of that. Sorry, Deputy, you were going to say something?
That's just for clarification, Your Worship. We don't make those decisions around council table, right?
No.
That's not. So, so from what I understand from Chad earlier, we've hired a new transportation person, Richard Camo. Now, would he sidewalks everything else? And I know you're doing some work, Jeff, with a parking study. Would Mr. Camo be involved in this? So once Dave retires, Dave's our traffic authority now. Who's going to be the traffic authority? Or is that a decision that we're going to make at council? Will that be the transportation person, or will that be the engineer? Or that's going to be an internal discussion you have?
I'll make a recommendation to you on that.
Okay, so right now what Councillor Dennis is requesting is you're actually looking at the process. You're looking at the spaces. I know you said you sent out, Sonny has been doing some not measurements, but has been doing some work on the street.
Yep.
And you're going to come back with a recommendation, or you're going to talk to the people that will be involved in making the recommendation, because that's, if we want to do one in front of there, then somebody else might, it's a snowball effect. I know accessibility is a problem.
Everybody needs that, sir.
So there's a couple pieces, and Your Worship, I greatly respect Councillor Dennis's comments that we don't know until we're in that position, and so I certainly wouldn't hope to not presume to know what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. So, the request, so what are we doing? What are we doing about that? We've asked Morris Lloyd to coordinate a general parking study of the downtown, because we know there are a couple of projects that we hope are going to happen in the near future that we know will impact on parking downtown. So that is generally parking capacity, but a part of that is accessible parking. And I hope a part of that ultimately becomes parking design, because I think even as we have curb cuts and blue paint, I don't know that fully does it. Right, I've seen some designs that are better than that. So I hope that at some point we can do better than that, even on our streets, not just in our parking lots. So the other part is the Accessibility Act requirements require every municipality to have a municipal accessibility plan. And as Frank mentioned earlier, that involves all your recreation facilities, but involves all your public buildings and spaces as well, and obviously your parking. So we will have a plan for that, and I hope those two activities combined together will guide us in terms of what's the right number of parking spaces for our population on the street and in parking lots? What is the right inventory to have? The work that Sonny is doing right now is the front end of that. He's doing, I guess, inventory, but how much is that inventory being used? He's just counting cars different times of the day. How many available spaces? Are they handicap spaces, or are they regular parking spaces in lots on the street? That kind of thing. So it's a process, and you know, it's a bit of a balancing act, and I think you're quite right that where are those people with disabilities likely to go, most likely to need access to, and do we have the parking spaces located appropriately? You know, that's part of the process. So your motion, I believe, was to refer it to staff to look at that specifically. We are currently looking at the issue generally. So if Your Worship, I would propose that we not make a change until we finish that process, because it involves painting parking lots, parking spaces, and so on. I ask for your patience just while we do that. And you know, with this current issue on the table, I think we'll try and do that as quickly as we can. Now, one of the requirements of the Accessibility Act is that we have an accessibility committee. And I think that committee can interface with that parking study if we get it up and going. So perhaps what we should do in the near term as an action on this is to form that accessibility committee. You know, we aren't required to yet, but let's get it going.
Yeah,
let's
we
call
need
for
to get
members of
that
the
done.
community who can inform us through life experience of the issues that are most important, and get going with the work.
Staff.
Okay. So you want me to withdraw my motion, or?
It's not, nobody seconded it, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're good. Yeah, go ahead. Cliff?
So I know a little bit about this because Mrs. Hood is sufficiently restricted in her mobility to have a handicapped designation from the province. So I get to know a little bit about this. When Happy Feet put their request and I saw it come around, I said, I think I know it. There are 2 very well-marked handicapped parking spaces at the top end of the Brown Street parking lot, and there is a ramp from the parking lot onto the sidewalk. And I said, well, there's no need for an additional handicap space in front of the Happy Feet because he's only 3 or 4 storefronts up. And frankly, Mrs. Hood's car was parked in that handicap spot last night to go into the restaurant. And I just don't think, I wouldn't have supported the motion, frankly, because of that. It's there. Very well marked. Handicapped parking spaces. 15 or 20 feet from the sidewalk on good pavement.
Okay, you good? Good?
Good.
All right, so those, go ahead.
So just as the action item, the only thing that
Yes.
we will change, so maybe a motion, let's get a motion on the books to get staff to bring back terms of reference for the Accessibility Committee.
Do you want to make that motion? Zane?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Second,
moved and seconded, discussion?
just before that time, did you get the timeline on that, Chet?
They'll get it done.
Okay, good.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so additions, okay, so I think we're good. So we need a motion to go in camera.
So will Your Worship.
Good stuff. Okay, so we got a couple things in camera and accessibility.